Hello grade 6 students, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to a new lecture. This lecture is a reading comprehension workshop on the lesson entitled She Had to Walk Before She Could Run. This is the table of contents for this presentation. First, I want you to remind yourself of our theme, which is challenges, and then we will look at vocabulary words. After that, we will be reading the lesson, and then we will be learning about idioms, genre, reread strategy, and transition words. Please take a moment to remember our theme, which is entitled Challenges, and you can relate to the lesson that we took before, Treasure in the Attic, and I want you to guess what this lesson will be about. The essential question that we will be focusing on in this lecture is: how do people meet personal challenges? Please think to yourself and try to answer this question. Throughout this presentation, we will be answering this question. Here are the vocabulary words that we want to study before starting with our reading lesson. The first word is assess. I want you, as we did in the first lesson, to read the sentence that has the vocabulary word assess and to try to answer the question on that vocabulary word. Also relate to the picture that's in front of you in relation to that vocabulary word. Using these three tools, please try to find the meaning of this vocabulary word. So the first word is assess. Tests help teachers assess how well students are learning. How do sports fans assess how well an athlete is performing? The second vocabulary word is compensate. On hot days, a fan can help compensate for the lack of a breeze. How are the meanings of the words compensate and replace related? The third vocabulary word is deteriorated. The paint had deteriorated after years of exposure to weather. What is a synonym for deteriorated? The fourth vocabulary word is devastating. The devastating fire destroyed many trees. What other natural occurrences have devastating effects? The fifth vocabulary word, implement. My school plans to implement a program that promotes eating healthy foods. What program do you think your school should implement? The sixth vocabulary word is peripheral. The wide brim of her hat blocked some of her peripheral vision. Why might peripheral vision be important? The next vocabulary word is potential. The dark clouds indicate the potential for a rainstorm. When is the potential for snow the greatest? And the last vocabulary word is summit. The climbers finally reached the summit of the mountain. What is an antonym of summit? Here are the meanings of the vocabulary words. First one, assess. It means examine, evaluate, or estimate the quality of something or the ability of someone. For example, the teacher assesses the students, which means the teacher gives a test for the students to evaluate their knowledge, to examine what they have learned. Number two, compensate. It means to replace, to balance between two things, or to reduce something by adding something else. For example, the fan compensates for the hot weather, so it replaces the feeling or the hot weather by making someone feel better. And the third one, deteriorated, means became worse or got ruined, like the paint got deteriorated because of the weather. It got ruined because of the weather. The fourth one, devastating. It means highly destructive or damaging. For example, this fire is devastating. This means the fire is so dangerous and it can damage everything. The fifth vocabulary word is implement. It means put a decision or plan into action. So the school is implementing the plan of eating a healthy food, which means the school had a plan for students to start eating healthy food, and the school is putting that plan into action, which means the school started working on that plan and applying it in the campus. And the sixth vocabulary word is peripheral. It means the outer, the border, or on the edge. The seventh word is potential. It means having the capacity or possibility to develop into something in the future. There is a potential, there is a capacity, a possibility for someone or for something to develop. And the last vocabulary word is summit. It means the top, highest point of a mountain or a hill. Now, I want you to pick 3 vocabulary words and then write 3 questions based on these vocabulary words. Write these 3 questions for your partner to answer them. If you're an online student, find someone else for you to answer the questions, and you have to form these questions based on 3 vocabulary words of your choice. Now it's time to read our lesson. Please go to your book, pages 252, 253, 254, and 255 to follow on the reading. Before starting with reading the lesson, the first thing that we should do is to predict based on the title of the lesson and the picture. So the title of the lesson is She Had to Walk Before She Could Run. She, which means this lesson maybe is going to talk about a girl or a woman, and she had to walk before she could run. But we all know that most of the people can walk already. So why did she have to walk before she could run? Please try to answer this question on your own and predict what this lesson is going to be about. And then this lesson says that you're going to read how a young woman overcame physical challenges to become an Olympic athlete. So after thinking of this lesson and predicting what it is going to be about, think about the physical challenges and make your thoughts more specific. So what do you think are these physical challenges that this woman has faced? Let's start reading page 253. In a crowded Olympic stadium, the gun sounded and Wilma Rudolph took off like a bolt of lightning. As this amazing athlete ran confidently around the track, she never lost her cool. Sprinting toward the finish line, Wilma used her peripheral vision to ensure that her competitors would not catch up. The crowd roared with elation as the fastest woman in the world finished more than 3 yards ahead of the other athletes, against all odds. Though Wilma Rudolph inspired many during that 1960 Summer Olympics in Rome, Italy, her childhood had been riddled with hardships. Wilma was one of 22 children born to an impoverished Tennessee family. While she was a toddler, her health deteriorated because of life-threatening illnesses. When she was 4 years old, Wilma contracted polio, a severe disease that causes paralysis. As a result, Wilma lost the use of her left leg. Having polio could have been devastating for Wilma. Instead, she faced this physical challenge with a positive attitude and never lost sight of her goal. I want you to take a moment and try to answer the question that you asked yourself before starting the reading, the question that you tried to predict. What do you think is the physical challenge that Wilma had? Wilma's mother taught her very early to believe she could achieve any goal, and the first was to walk without leg braces. Once a week, she drove Wilma 90 miles round trip to Nashville for physical therapy. Her mother also instructed Wilma's siblings on how to massage their sister's legs. Done several times a day, this monotonous routine continued for several years. An inspiring comeback. Wilma's doctors had little hope that she would ever be able to walk again. When she was 9 years old, they decided to assess her progress. After the doctors removed the braces, they were amazed to see that Wilma could walk on her own. They were stunned by what this young girl could do despite having contracted a crippling disease for which there was no cure. Page 254. From then on, Wilma never looked back. To compensate for the years she had been in braces, Wilma became extremely active. As proof of her determination, she ran every day. She decided never to give up, no matter what happened. Wilma's brothers set up a basketball hoop in the backyard, and she and her siblings played all day. Wilma became an avid basketball player at school too. A track coach named Ed Temple from Tennessee State University spotted Wilma at a basketball tournament and was extremely impressed by her athletic ability and potential. He invited her to attend a sports camp. Once again, Wilma's life changed dramatically, this time for the better. An Olympic champion. The minute Wilma ran on a track, she loved it. When she was just 16 years old, she qualified for the 1956 Summer Olympic Games in Melbourne, Australia. And Wilma came home wearing the bronze medal she had won in the relay race. After high school, Wilma was awarded a full scholarship to major in education at Tennessee State University. But once again, Wilma had to overcome challenges. In 1958, having put her shoulder to the wheel both in class and during track and field events, she became too ill to run. After she had a tonsillectomy, however, she felt better and started to run again. Unfortunately, Wilma pulled a muscle at a track meet in 1959, and Coach Temple had to implement a plan for her recovery. Wilma recovered just in time to qualify for the 1960 Summer Olympics in Rome. On page 255. In her individual sprints, Wilma outshone her competition and won 2 gold medals with ease. During the relay event, however, the team comprised of 4 athletes from Tennessee State found themselves in hot water. After a poor baton pass, Wilma had to pick up her pace and run like the wind to complete the last leg of the race. She successfully overtook Germany's last runner to win the race. Wilma became the first American woman in track and field to win 3 gold medals. Of her feeling of accomplishment, she said she knew it was something nobody could ever take away from me, ever. Giving back. The summit of Wilma's career might have been her achievements as an Olympic athlete. Instead, she went on to accomplish much more. After graduating from college, she taught school and coached track. Soon, Wilma was traveling the country, giving speeches to school audiences. To inspire others to do their best in spite of all challenges, she would note that the triumph can't be had without the struggle. Wilma achieved her dreams and, ever after, helped others to reach theirs. Now I want you to reflect on this reading. Talk about how Wilma met personal challenges to become a personal athlete. And then describe a time when someone you know had a personal challenge and overcame it. Now we're going to look at the genre of this text. The genre is biography. She had to walk before she could run. This lesson is a biography. A biography often focuses on a certain time period or important aspects of subject's life. For example, the author here is focusing on a specific time or period and important events that happened in Wilma's life. It may include text features that provide specific details. Now let's find text evidence. This biography of Wilma Rudolph focuses on the ways she dealt with the difficult challenges she faced. The information in the table gives me specific details about her accomplishments. So once again, what is the biography genre? A biography is a record of a person's life. In this example, it's a record of Wilma's life. It's written in third person, which means it's not Wilma who's talking about her own life. It's the author, someone else who's talking about Wilma. And I want you to look at this picture in front of you and relate to what the biography genre is. You can see a person sitting on a chair writing something on his computer, and after reading some books he's thinking of someone and writing about that person, and you can see that person is looking as a public figure, a known figure, maybe from the way the person is dressed. So the one sitting on the chair is the author who's writing a biography about this person's life. So it's written in third person, and biographies generally span a subject's lifetime, from birth to death. So they tell us when that person was born, what happened in their life on specific periods, and then the date where they died. And the biographies also include major events in his or her public and also private life. Biographies may delve into a person's psychology and explore their emotional, intellectual, and spiritual lives. For example, in this text, the author went into Wilma's psychology, her challenges, her feelings, her emotions, and the way she overcame them. Now it's your turn. Identify a challenge that Rudolph faced after recovering from polio. How does this information reflect the author's focus in this biography? Which means, based on that information specified in the text for you, how do you think the author is focusing or reflecting on that main event in writing Wilma's biography? And tell why the author chose to separate the information in the table from the main text. You can see these circles, it's a table, and the information there is separated. The main information that, or the main events that happened according to the date and time. So why do you think the author did that? And I want you also to know that tables show detailed information in an organized way. So these tables are displaying information about events in specific dates and time where Wilma experienced them. And then there are also photographs. The photographs show the subject at the time described. For example, the photographs of Wilma shows us Wilma at that time. For example, at the time where she was running or at the time where she won 3 medals. Now I want you to activate your smart and creative minds and try to give us examples of any texts or text that could be written about someone's or a famous person's life, which would be called a biography. Now we're moving to learn the reread strategy. When you read a biography, you may need to clarify what the author thinks is important about each of the events in the subject's life. As you read, she had to walk before she could run, this text, you can pause to reread difficult sections to make sure you understand the points the author is making in them. Which means, reread is a strategy for you to understand the text, the parts of the text or specific paragraphs, specific lines that you don't understand. So for you to be able to understand the point of the author, you have to reread that part sometimes more than one time because you might not be able to understand it from the first reading. Now find text evidence. You may need to read or reread this section against all odds on page 253 to make sure you understand the significance of what happened to Rudolph when she was a young child. For example, you read a specific part that's on page 253, which is all against all odds, and then you tell yourself, I read that Rudolph had poor health as a toddler and contracted polio at age 4. That tells me that Rudolph's greatest challenges arose when she was still very young. So what I just said is what you tell yourself after reading that part as a way of you trying to understand and make sense of what you've read. Now it's your turn. How does the author show Rudolph's determination once her leg braces were removed? Reread an inspiring comeback, that part, on page 253 to 254 to answer the question. As you read, remember to use the strategy reread. Now we move to idioms. The expression, it's raining cats and dogs, is an idiom. As a whole, the expression has a meaning that goes beyond the individual definitions of the words, which means in the text, there was this idiom, which is, it's raining cats and dogs. However, in real life, it does not rain cats and dogs, which means we cannot define or understand this sentence literally, word by word. So we have to make sense of it and go beyond its literal meaning. So this idiom, it's raining cats and dogs, doesn't have the meaning that it's really raining cats and dogs. So if you read an expression that does not make sense in this text, she had to walk before she could run, consider whether the phrase might be an idiom. Now look for context clues to help you understand it or verify what you think it means. As I said, saying that again, it's raining cats and dogs doesn't mean that it's literally raining cats and dogs. For you to understand what it means in the text, you have to look for context clues, which means you have to look for all the words and sentences around that phrase, in that paragraph, in that part, or in that whole text to understand what the meaning is. Now let's find text evidence. The phrase, put her shoulder to the wheel, confuses me. It doesn't make sense that Rudolph would place her shoulder against a wheel in school or on the track, right? Can someone put his or her shoulder against a wheel? It doesn't make sense in real life. But the sentence also says that Wilma became too ill to run. I think the expression is an idiom that means Wilma worked extremely hard. So I want you to think to yourself the way I was just thinking, the way I was just saying what I said, that this sentence doesn't make sense, so I try to understand it from the context. For example, in 1958, having put her shoulder to the wheel both in class and during track and field events, she became too ill to run, which means in 1958, having given all that hard work and extreme work, she became too ill to run. Now it's your turn. Use context clues to determine the meaning of each of the following idioms in this text. She had to walk before she could run. The first one is on page 253, she never lost her cool. The next one on page 254, Wilma never looked back. And the third one on page 255, found themselves in hot water. These are three idioms and they don't have the literal meaning of the words, so look for their meaning in the text. So again, what are idioms? Idioms are phrases which people use in everyday language, which do not make sense literally, but we understand what they mean from the context. Here I have few examples for you, and I want you also to think of your own. First one, we already explained it, raining cats and dogs. It means it's raining heavily. It's raining so much. Second one, hold your horses. It means wait, calm down. Third one, miss the boat. It means to miss the chance. And the fourth one, when pigs fly. Also, it's an idiom. It means something that's impossible to happen because it's impossible for pigs to fly. So when someone says, oh, I will do this when pigs fly, which means I'm not going to do this, or it's impossible to happen. And then it's a piece of cake. It means it's very easy. And then run across, it doesn't mean you're running across something. It means you're passing by something or someone. Now, last but not least, readers to writers. Remember, we have already studied parts of the paragraph and we said that between sentences in the paragraph there should be transition words that connect these sentences and they help the paragraph and the sentences to make sense all together. So here in a biography, the author uses transition words and phrases to let readers know when and how the subject's life changed. Transitions such as, in this case, and after returning home, they clarify shifts in the subject's circumstances or the events. Now reread the excerpt from this text, which is she had to walk before she could run. Below this excerpt. After high school, Wilma was awarded a full scholarship to major in education at Tennessee State University. You can see after high school. It's specifying when Wilma was awarded a full scholarship to major in education at Tennessee State University. So this transition word is clarifying and making me understand and relate this part to everything that was said before. But once again, Wilma had to overcome challenges, which means, again, at that time too, Wilma was facing challenges. In 1958, in class and during track and field, in 1958, having put her shoulder to the wheel, both in class and during track and field events, she became too ill to run. After she had a tonsillectomy, however, she felt better and started to run again. So look for the transition words and look how they connect the sentences and help us understand all the sentences in relation to each other to make one coherent paragraph. So identify the transition words and phrases and how do they signal shifts in time or location. Now it's your turn. Look at this short paragraph. Identify the transitions that Mara used. Tell why she added the phrase just after she turned 3. Why did Mara add to me in the second to last sentence, and how did the revisions or the editings that are in red improve her writing? You remember also we said that when writing a paragraph, at the end we revise our paragraph, we edit our paragraph. So look also here for the revisions and how they improve the writing. Also look for the difference transition words make. So let's read the student's model together. Talking with our hands. My best friend Lena deserves much credit for dealing with a big challenge. Lena developed a high fever that left her deaf. This is without the revision. After the revision, it says just after she turned 3, which means at that time, after she turned 3, just after she turned 3. They're specifying when that event happened in Lena's life, which means just after she turned 3, Lena developed a high fever that left her deaf. When she transferred to my school from one for hearing impaired kids, it was often difficult for Lena. She felt hurt when kids started at her hearing aids using the sign language Lena had taught me years before I signed. Show kids how to talk with their hands. They will think it's cool. Lena listened to me and it worked. Because of her effort, Lena has the acceptance she deserves. Thank you for watching. I hope that everything was clear for you. And here our lecture comes to an end. Thank you again. If you have any question, you have my email mohsen.ischooli@gmail.com at the International School of Innovation.